watching movies, too. I mean,
and I think it would be a more economical way of getting them out there, too, because you're not sending print.
And not just that, but it's like what you were talking about, the marketing involved to actually put a movie out there is astronomical. Like, as far as like a big release, in the theater. So if you could do this VOD and, so many people could actually watch it for cheap, like, if a bunch of people went in together and watched a movie, or, and the marketing would be a whole lot less as well. It just seems like a more reasonable way of doing things.
That's why I'm glad that people are doing it. Like, like Kevin Smith did it with Red State and, of course, James Gunn. So they're starting to slowly embrace it, but I mean, if they started putting out Harry Potter, or because that was the big thing because they were kind of threatening to put Harry Potter out on VOD, and like all the theaters kind of got up in arms about like, oh no, you can't do that. So I think we're still a little bit away from when we'll see the big stuff hit VOD, but at the same time, I think it's great for especially the horror community, because I think it's getting a bigger audience, and it's also, I think it's probably helping them making their money back.
I agree.
The biggest problem with I think Netflix is that they pay one license, and then you're kind of like, you don't get paid off of that sort of thing. So people pay their monthly, their monthly rate, and you kind of get as much as you want to watch. So I mean, the problem for filmmakers too is the fact that it's not cheap to make films, and you have to figure out where your revenue stream's coming from, and so. It gets really kind of sticky, because on the one hand, as a fan, you want to be able to watch the stuff, and on the other hand, as a filmmaker, like, oh my God, how am I going to make?
Exactly.
It's just not a cheap medium to like the budgets have already come down a lot, which is both good and bad. You just have to be more resourceful. But yeah, no, and there is something really nice about. I think that's what the horror festivals do, is that you get a chance to actually watch the film with the crowd. And, because especially with horror and comedy are the two things that you actually want to be with a group of people.
Right.
It's just a lot of fun.
It's a lot more fun to watch those types of movies with a crowd than by yourself.
So even like I think the last really fantastic horror film I went to see in the theater was I Saw the Devil. I've seen them since, but that's the one I really liked. So I was sitting next to this like teen guy, and the whole time I kept laughing, and he kept going, "Oh God!" So then, which I don't know what that says either. And at the end, I think he poked me and he said, "Lady, you are sick." And so then, I take that as a compliment.
That's a compliment. But that is true. Some of my favorite movie-going experiences have been horror movies.
Right.
Like I remember going to see. I don't know if I was with you or somebody else, but I remember going to see, oh God, what was that movie? The daggone with the girls in the cave and the monsters.
The Descent.
The Descent. I remember that was so freaking awesome in the theater.
I don't know if you saw that.
Watching, I think it was with Robbie I went and saw it with, but stuff like that, and like Hostel, and I'm not even the biggest fan of Hostel, but watching that with a group of, especially like, because I think there was a lot of young girls in there.
Oh, jumping.
Yeah, so a lot of times that's what makes, seeing a horror movie better, is just being in there with.
Well, because what it is,
girls.
The thing about it is we've seen so many horror movies to where it's almost not as exciting for us for the jumps and scares. Yeah. When you are in a theater like that, there are people that aren't as immune to horror and scares. It's fun to watch their reactions.
Yeah, and that's what I've liked about doing especially doing the film festival, is seeing just how much has come in that is. The stuff like, what Karen sent in and stuff, that, other people have sent in, because we talked about Rage in the last show, and we're going to be talking about Down the Road coming up, and we're going to have the director of that coming on. But just seeing, like, all the stuff that they're doing that is, just a little bit outside of the system and doesn't kind of conform to, what the major studios are putting out. It's not... a remake of...
Well, I'm not a big fan of the major studios, so...
Yeah.
So, they do what they do well, and it's a different... It's not... It's a different sort of thing. I don't consider it film. I see it as product, and it's...
Yeah, it's a good word. I think that's a very good word for it.
But, they do still make some good movies. Like, I mean, I hate to say it, too, but, every now and then they'll sneak in.
Every now and then.
They'll sneak in, but still... When you're talking about horror movies, independent is still where the best ones are.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, it's really hard because it's, you know, for most of us, when you're financing, you're going in at script stage, and I think that a lot of executives aren't necessarily horror fans. So what they do is they fall back on formulas. So if you send in a script that doesn't feel like that formula, like you don't have a death every 10 pages, they think there's something wrong with your script, right?
Yeah.
Like or they have a very specific, like, whatever's hot is what they're chasing. So, you know, if it happened to be hostile, that's what they're all saying, well, it's not hostile, you know, and you know, they'll have these old buzzwords like torture porn is dead, you know, and then and then good luck to you if you have a torture porn, right?
Yeah,
it just ends up being like, and whatever their buzzword is, that's what they're looking for, and you send your script in, and they're literally, well, we don't know what to do with this one, because it's not, you know, it's either this or
I can even see where that could be a problem for, like, your movie, because it doesn't really fit into...
Oh, absolutely not. It didn't.
It's not your typical horror movie. You know, it's a girl in the lead, and it's a very slow build. Like, there's nothing that really grabs you right at the end. You kind of have to, you know, sit there for a little while before you start to find out that this girl is freaking nuts. Right. And then the big payoff is right at the end.
Yeah, and I would say that even the earlier drafts of the script, like, you know, it took me 2 goes to even get the Canadian government, you know, even though I was friends with them, to actually come on board, because, you know, the first drafts of it were even raggedier. They really felt like probably closer to Repulsion, and, you know, that's where a lot of my influences was like old Polanski, and it's all atmosphere, and, you know, it's sort of on the page, but people are like, well, it doesn't fit into anything. So, you know, and even still, I mean, by the time we actually shot this draft, it was a lot further than where I had started. You know, like I think in some ways, you know, it's your first film thing. You know, like for me, I would love to go back, and I know this sounds like completely anti-industry in some way, but I would say that I wish I had half my budget and probably less partners than I did. I know that sounds odd to say. I wish I had less financing, but I think that it would have been, in some ways, even a stranger, quirkier film that would be closer to what I had probably intended. But, you know, things evolve, so it ends up being what it is. But that's just me a year and a half later saying, wow, you know, where did it go, and, you know, where do I want to go from here? So.
Well, I don't think I don't think you have anything to be ashamed of where it went. Because I would say it's definitely been a success. I mean, just from, you know, because I know, like, when you told me it was on iTunes, I immediately got on iTunes and, you know, was looking to see what people were saying about it. And that most people were. I think that especially Tinsel Corey probably definitely helped it a lot, because most of the stuff I was reading was about her and her. She
was really fabulous to work with. You know, Tinsel's hardworking, and I had a fabulous working relationship with her. So no, absolutely no issues on that. It's just funny because, you know, it's always this thing in your head. You know, like by the time you make a film, you know, especially if you've written it as well, there was a film that was in your head that's on paper. There's the film that is on set, and then there's the film that you edit. You know. So it's like, you know, all the layers, and you know, I love that collaboration. I love actually working with you know, just your entire team and your actors, and everyone brings something to it. It's just I just wonder, like, you know, it was just I think it was a bit of a tough slug on your first one, especially coming from a producing side of things. I think that I tend to be a lot more collaborative than sometimes you get these first time filmmaker auteur people, and they're like, this is my vision, and I'm just like, you know, yeah, but that makes me look like an idiot. So, okay, let's just go do it. You know, like, so I tend to be a little bit, you know, probably more collaborative than someone who, you know, might have come from film school and, you know, wears a little beret and stuff. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that happened. We lost Karen right there, and I don't know if she is. She's still on Skype, so I'm going to stop the show, and then we're going to come back and talk to her real quick and wrap it up. So hold on, and we'll be back in a little bit.